Hello again. I'm back with another clock to repair. This one is a Sunbeam Eternatime clock. I found it because one of my subscribers contacted me and thought I'd want to work on one that has a very odd name. This one is made by the Chicago Flexible Shaft Company. I found this one on eBay. It was going for $20, being sold as a non-working clock. I also found others just like this, also non-working, that were being offered for anywhere from $40 to $130. So I was pretty happy to get it for just $20. I'd never heard of the Chicago Flexible Shaft Company before, so I looked up their history and found that they were established in 1893. They made horse clippers and sheep shearers, first mechanical ones and then electric. And it was spun off into two different appliance manufacturers. One of them was Sunbeam, a company that was known for making toasters and things like the Mixmaster mixers. Another company was called Stewart Warner, which made speedometers, and this was in 1910. These Sunbeam Eternatime clocks were known for being made in stone cases, and I don't know if this one is marble or quartz, but it's very heavy. If I turn around to show the back, has this brown spot on it, which is part of the stone. It's not something that I can clean off. It's very smooth. The front reads Sunbeam Eternatime, and it's hard to see on the back, but it does say Chicago Flexible Shaft Company. These are not self-starting clocks. There's a knob to spin on the back, which makes the second hand turn, and that's how you get them started. However, when I turn this one, the second hand's not moving at all. So that's a concern over whether I'm going to be able to get this one repaired. I'm not sure what year it was made. However, I do know that these non-self-starting clocks were pretty much made in the 1930s. So let me get this set up on my work table and I'll look to start taking it apart. Okay, a few things I'd like to point out. One is I'm noticing on the bottom of this felt pad, and you can almost see the outline. There's 3 holes underneath it. Pretty sure there are screws in here that are holding these 2 balls to this bottom piece, and the middle one holds the circular part of the case. But I'm not going to look to disturb the felt pad. I'm going to leave it as it is. Turning this over to start to take this apart, we're missing 1 screw here, but there's 2 more here and here. I'm also noticing the set knob has an arrow to turn only to the right, and that is working, even though I can turn it both ways. And as far as the start knob goes, I'm noticing that it seems to be bent. You can kind of see how it's spinning around. And if and when I have to remove this, I'm noticing a slot cut into the side of the handle here, so I should be able to pry that off if I have to. Before taking it apart though, let's see if the circuit is intact. I haven't plugged it in, and I don't want to do that until I've opened it up, but let's check it with the ohm meter. When I touch the leads to the end of the plug here, if the wiring's intact, you'll see numbers flashing. And there you go. So that's always good to see. It tells me that this clock should be repairable. Again, my concern is the fact that the start knob doesn't seem to be functioning at all. Now, seeing as this is so heavy, I don't want to break the glass, so when I start to work on it, I'm going to cushion it. Just put this other towel underneath it. And we'll start with just removing these 2 screws. There's 1. And 2. Let's see what we have here. Now, this whole thing may just come right out of this case now. Or not. That's a pretty tight fit. Perhaps I have to pry off the rim a little bit. No, that's not really happening either. Okay, well, I certainly don't want to damage, scratch, or force anything, so give me a couple of minutes to take a closer look and figure out why this is not slipping out of here. I think I figured it out. It's almost like a large spring, but this metal ring goes all the way around, and you can see the gap between it. And I think I have to get underneath it and try to pry it out. Looks very similar to the type of thing I've seen on some Hammond clocks as far as what holds the rim in place. So let's see how easy it'll be to lift this out of here. Well, not working that way. Let's try over here. Now it's moved away a little bit. Come on. There we go. There we go. We got that. That's what's keeping it in from the back end of it. Okay. There's the glass. Let's take a look at this. So there's an insert in the case. And I don't believe there's going to be any need to remove this from here. So let's put this aside. So I'm going to have to remove the set knob and the start knob. So let me get set up to do that. However, I think before I start to do that, let's see if I can remove the hands. Something as old as this, I'm not even going to try it. I'm just going to put a little bit of some WD-40 to help loosen up the hands. To do that, I just spray a little bit into a cap that I have. And just paint a little bit around the center stem for the minute hand, or second hand rather, and try to get underneath it. And I'll let this sit for a good 10-15 minutes or so. Okay, it's been sitting for a good long time. Let's see if I can remove the second hand. Not bad. And and I see a small nut holding the minute hand. Okay, the minute hand is on a rectangular stem, so it can only fit in one position. Let's try the hour hand. Very easy. The dial should come off. Not sure why this piece of tape is here. That's garbage now. This was probably placed here so somebody might have worked on this clock to keep the dial from rotating when it was being reassembled. It looks like someone oiled this, but excessively. It's a real mess. Whether that has something to do with the fact that it's not running, I couldn't say. However, I don't think plugging it in is going to matter much because turning the start knob doesn't get anything moving. However, if I can figure out where the rotor is, which I think is this gear over here, if I plug it in and give this a spin, it might just start running. Let's find out. Okay, plugged in. And it's running. Look at that. Whoop. So I have to figure out why, when you turn the start knob, it's not engaging whatever gear gets this rotor spinning. And let me turn this off. Okay, so next I want to remove the set knob and the starter knob. Because this is supposed to only be turned one direction, that tells me it might be a threaded knob. So let's see if I can turn it the wrong way and unscrew it. Oh, how about that? That wasn't bad at all. I guess my turning it both ways helped to loosen it. Now this is a friction grip. If I can grab the stem under here, I might be able to pull this off. So let's give that a try. Use my vice grip for that. Oh, not bad at all. Okay. What I want to do now, before I take it apart any further, is take a few photos so I know the arrangement of the gears that are in here. This looks quite different from most of the other clocks that I've worked on. It has a coil similar to a lot of Hammonds, and I want to be extra careful here to not break off any of these wires that are connected to it. This wire seems to be connected just with some electrical tape. I'm going to undo that first and somehow maybe tape these down in position so they don't get disturbed. So let me do that on my own before I continue. I've removed the power cord. I really can't secure this any better than it is now. I'll just have to be careful. One thing I did was I reseated the start knob, and what I found is the gear at the end of it is supposed to engage this larger gear underneath it. And I found that when I pulled this back and turned it, it wasn't really catching the gear. But when I placed my finger underneath it and sort of seated it a little bit further up, see if I can do that again here. It allowed this to start to engage. And now when I turn it, I think the clock will start now by doing this. However, it's so oily in here and dirty. I'm still going to take this completely apart to thoroughly clean it and lubricate it. And first step to take this apart, I think what I'm going to do is a couple of nuts on this plate. I think I can remove this to start, and we'll see which way is going to give me access to the gears under here. So let's start with this. Okay, we have 2 more nuts here. And let's see what happens when I remove those. Quite tight. There we go. Now I don't see any springs in here, so hopefully lifting this up won't make anything pop out. Oh. Okay, next I'll take some photos of this and kind of figure out how everything comes apart, and then I'll continue from there. I'll show you how these come apart. Let me just zoom in a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and lastly the start knob, which has a spring on it. Now to remove the rotor, I have to get this plate off of here, and to do that I think I have to loosen, because this is floating around but I can't get it out. I have to loosen the 2 nuts on this side, so let's do that. So this comes out of here along with this sleeve. Wow, oil everywhere. What a mess. So this should lift up, I believe. And no, it's not, because this nut here is holding it down. Okay, let's undo that. And here's the rotor. So what I'm going to do now is clean up everything. Get this into my ultrasonic, some real hot soapy water. I use Dawn dish detergent, and we'll see just how clean I can get them, and then I'll be ready to reassemble and hope that this start knob, it lines up properly with the gear that gets the rotor going. So let me get started on all of that. Everything has been cleaned. I have to lubricate the parts and reassemble it, and I'll try to show as much of this as I can. I use some synthetic clock oil, and I apply it with what's called an oil pin. And the first part is the rotor. I just place a little oil just around the pivot. And let's try to zoom in just a little for this. This will go here. Now I have to seat the plate on top of this. And these posts are going to fit There's one. And two. Let's see if I got them in right. They are. Okay. So now, let's place the nuts here to secure it. Oh. And then we can reposition the rotor. Okay. Next I have to seat the start knob stem, which was bent, but I was able to straighten it out a bit. And that, I believe, fits over here. Okay, now I have to get set up to lubricate and reposition all the gears. First though, let me just tighten these nuts up all the way. Okay. Okay, let me get started on these other parts now. But I see the spring and start knob lever fell out, so let's put this back in. Oh, is that the right spot? There we go. Okay, now we're good. To put these back, this goes here. And then this one will be here. This goes here. This one fits here. This slips on top. And this goes here. Now what I actually have to do is I'm going to remove these because I have to lubricate them and then I'll put them back in, but I just wanted to save some time by showing you how they get set up. So let me go ahead and do that. Everything is lubricated and back together, and if you were watching closely, you may have noticed that I put these two parts in incorrectly. I had this one in first, and then this one should have been the other way around, but I have it correct now. What I want to do next is reseat this top plate. And then I have to guide the pivots into position. And that'll take a minute or two. Let me see if I can do it while we watch. There's one there. And now this is going to take a little bit of time, so let me work on it on my own. Once I have everything in position, I'll reseat the 4 nuts to secure it, and then we'll take it from there. I have it back together, and a couple of things with this. One is it takes a long time to guide everything into position, and one tip you can do is once this plate is seated, position a nut, but not all the way tight, so that as you work your way across and pushing down on one side won't cause this side to pop off. And now that it's together, if I give the start knob a turn, let's take that gear off. It appears as if it's working properly. The one thing I have to do though is I actually need to remove these 4 nuts and then place this plate in position. It will go like this, and then secure the 4 nuts over here. So I just have to remove these and be careful not to let the plate come off so that none of the gears fall out of position. Again, I'll work on that on my own. It's back together, and turns out I only had to remove 2 of the 4 nuts, so this plate under here getting loose really wasn't an issue. What I need to do next is seat the dial, and what I'm noticing, and the reason that there was tape here, is it's unusual. There are tabs that you usually see that get bent around the plate to secure the dial. However, the way this sits here, those tabs, they don't come close to this plate. It's almost as if the dial should have been painted in this position. So I'll be using some double-sided tape here to secure this. But before I do that, one, I want to clean up the dial. I also want to clean up the glass as well as the hands. And then I'll be ready to put this all back together. So let me work on that. Everything has been cleaned. I placed some double-sided tape here, and what I discovered is that the plate is a little bit bent. It doesn't sit flush to this plate. So when I place it here, only the top portion is making contact, not the lower half, which is why I'm only going with 3 pieces here. Let me just seat the dial. And I think that'll work out just fine. Next, I have to synchronize the hands. As the minute hand goes on in only one direction, let's seat that first. And then turn it to the 12. And then the hour hand on the 12. And the minute hand back on. Let me secure it with the small nut. Okay, tighten this up. Very good. Next, the second hand. And now if I turn that start knob, you can see the second head's moving. Okay, I'll have to remove that again. The glass will sit over here. But before this goes into the case, I need to clean it up. And what I plan to do is, I have some quartz cleaner. I'll go over it. I don't know if it'll give it more of a shine, but at least it'll get off any dirt that's on here. I'll look to polish this brass rim. And what I've also noticed is all of that oil and dirt that was in the clock has also gotten inside here. So I'm going to give a good cleaning to the inside of this as well. And then I'll be ready to put it back together. So let me work on this. I've gone over the case. I think it has a bit more of a shine. Might be hard to tell. The brass rim polished up nice. And I think what I'm also going to do with the back plate is kind of beat up and scratched and scraped. I'm going to paint this. And I also have to figure out what's going to be the best way to hook up the power cord. It depends on how much room I'm going to have inside the case, whether I'd like to use wire nuts to connect it. If there's no room for those, I might have to resort on using electrical tape, but I'll figure it out as I go along. For now, I'll paint the back of this, and then we'll take it from there. So, a few things to show. One is, I painted the back plate. Another is, I came up with a rubber grommet to fit in the hole where the power cord passes through. It'll give it a more snug fit, and I think it's a much cleaner look. And three, I'm still concerned about damaging the wires that come off the coil, so I secured it with some Gorilla Tape. And I also think that once I place this back plate in position, I'm going to have enough room to use the wire nuts. I'll attach them to the end of the power cord here, and they'll sit in this open space, and then the wire snakes down and then out through the hole over here. And lastly, what I'm going to have to do is pass my power cord through the back plate and then secure it to the back of the clock, and then place the clock into the case along with the glass, and then tighten the whole thing up, first with the rim, and then I have a back plate frame that will get screwed down on the back of it as well. So let me get all that in position, and then we'll continue from there. It turns out that I couldn't get the wire nuts in here. They just wouldn't fit. So I ended up having to use electrical tape. However, I placed a nut in the cord. That way, if anyone's pulling on it, there's no risk of pulling apart the connection that I have here. So we'll fit this plate over the back. And then position the glass. And I'm going to want to cushion this with the towel again. And this is going to slip in here. Whoop. There we go. Okay. So what I have to do next, two things. One is make sure that the 12 is straight up. Just a little off. And then I have to secure the whole back by slipping this ring, working all around, and that could easily take me a minute or two. I'm not sure if I can do it while we wait or if I got to do it on my own, but let's take a look here. And I think I'm going to have to do it on my own, so give me some time for that, but I'll just be tucking it in and then all the way around. So let's see how that goes. I ended up doing a whole lot on my own. I secured that spring all the way around the rim. I then placed this ring over the case, secured it with the 2 screws, and found a third one. I seated the start knob and I seated the set knob, and now I'm ready to set this up on my workbench, plug it in, and we'll see if it works. So let me get set for that. Okay, it's up and it's plugged in. Let's give it a spin. And it's running. So there you have it. It's a Sunbeam Eternatime clock. It's made by the Chicago Flexible Shaft Company. It's from the 1930s. It could be either side of 90 years old. I'm pretty pleased with how this one came out. I think it's a really good looking clock. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions and comments are always welcome. I try to answer them all. And that pretty much wraps things up. Bye for now.